fundraising project. The Great Fundraising Project, how did it all start? It started with a car crash. So our chairman and founder, Alan Clayton, his direct marketing agency had been working for 10 years with World Society for Protection of Animals. But the relationship was falling apart. Results were going south. And Alan had a sense that we're probably going to be fired. So he decided, let's just end this relationship with dignity. So he went to the global director and explained what was going on and what he thought. And he said, we're not really getting what we need to meet donor needs. And the director said, our team don't really know. They don't have records. There's a new team. It's all turned over. They don't really know what donors need. So Alan was able to say, well, we do. We have spent the last 10 years recording every single campaign. We've developed what we call a guard book in direct marketing. So the director said, don't worry, Alan, you're not going to be fired. Get your people in a room and my people in a room, and don't leave until you figure this out. They didn't know this at the time, but this was the first ever revolutionized seminar. 2 days, the only thing on the agenda was figure this out. They weren't going through Gantt charts. They didn't have a detailed itemized agenda. But something fascinating happened in those 2 days that helped Alan develop the hypotheses for subsequent academic research. The first day was all recrimination, all blame. It was all tension, an internal battle. But along those 2 days, something changed, and it can all be focused down to this particular moment. So on the first day, people were storming out and swearing. On the second morning, two things happened. Someone wheeled in a drinks trolley. The other one is they looked at the results that Alan's agency Cascade had. And they saw that when WISPA spoke about animals, they didn't raise that much money. But when they spoke about animals and the cruel humans who were exploiting them and the good humans who were trying to stop exploitation, they saw they raised a lot of money. So the key insight was, we're not the RSPCA. We're not here for the puppies and the kittens and the cute and the cuddlies. We are more like Amnesty International for animals. So that shifted the energy, and it was all crystallized when someone wrote on the whiteboard, WSPA, we sell powerful anger. That's where they lined up their why and the why of their donors. Everything changed. They shifted from internal criticism and blame to focus on an external dream quickly. This is a large international NGO. This was tens of millions of pounds. A 235% increase in revenue followed in just 12 months. So something was happening, something different. So some years later, Alan was discussing this. The emotional energy shifted from internal analysis criticism to focusing on an external dream quickly. So some years later, Alan was discussing this with Adrian Sargent. If you don't know who this gentleman is, he's Adrian Sargent, the foremost fundraising academic in the world. There's an argument whether it's him or his wife who's the foremost. We'll say they're joint first for domestic political reasons, let's say. But he was talking about this, and they were discussing a book called Good to Great by American academic Jim Collins. Jim Collins spent 5 years studying the most successful businesses in the history of the US. And looking at pairs of organizations, pairs that flatlined. One had to flatline, one had to have massive growth. They had to have the same product in the same time period. So think of Xerox and another photocopy company you've never heard of. So through that lens, they found 13 organizations. And then they looked at what the successful ones had in common that was unique from the rest. So Alan spoke to Adrian and said, is there any research that might support or help me kind of develop this hypothesis from WISPA? And that would confirm or deny what Good to Great says. And Adrian said, no, would you like that? Would you like that research? Because if anyone has ever worked in academia, it's the toughest sales gig there is, really. But I'm delighted that happened, because that resulted in the Great Fundraising Report, which I found in 2014 when I was doing my diploma in fundraising. And it helped me do my homework, and it changed my career. This is Good to Great for the charity sector. We also looked at pairs of organizations, same time period and same cause. So NSPCC is an example and a comparator. A comparator who flatlined at NSPCC, where Giles worked, set a £250 million campaign goal and hit it, all driven by a powerful, impossible dream. 10 years later, slightly over 10 years later, Alan wrote the book. We published it in January, but we were waiting for the ultimate evidence because we're all fundraisers, and that was results. So this is chosen to show a breadth of causes, countries, and sizes of organizations. There are micro-organizations, national organizations, global organizations, animal organizations, people organizations, medical organizations, etc. I'll just draw, we've many South Africans. So some of you may be familiar with Phoenix in South Africa, not to embarrass Nyasha, but Nyasha drove all of this growth. And she did it on her own without our support, applying the principles that she learned from Revolutionize. So as I often say, again, not to embarrass you, Nyasha, as I often say, Nyasha is the most qualified consultant we have because she did it all from scratch on her own, which is fantastic. But you'll see global names, WWF and UNICEF, or an ally over here in the bottom left. This is the best known in the UK and Ireland. That's only 30%, but that's growth from 190 million to 248 million pounds per annum. The red dot here, I'm going to explain what that means. But the red dot, for the purpose of this graph, is when organizations did the Great Fundraising Masterclass, engaged with the concepts, and then applied the principles that they learned. So through all of our research, we've decoded the big picture behaviors, mental models, systems, etc. What we call the building blocks of great fundraising. This is a quality management system as it pertains to meeting the needs of donors. If organizations get these lined up, they accelerate without exception, we have seen. But an absolute key one and a key principle is the red dot. So when we looked at the research, all of the high growth and long-term growth organizations showed the same kind of pattern. If we were fundraising robots, it would be a straight line because fundraising really is an investment game. It's money in, money out. But the variable is always people, actually. So we worked with the academics to understand what was going on during a surge, what was going on during a flat line, proceeding, etc. And going through all of the data and all of the interviews and all of the behaviors, we actually identified what we came to call the red dot. Apparently in the room, they had a red marker and a blue marker. That's why we have a red dot and a blue dot, as you'll see. But the red dot actually was a process initiated by the great fundraising leaders. You telling me to hurry up?
Yeah, half time in 2 minutes.
Yes. I'm going to go really fast. Thank you. We're got charmingly amateur, we said. We're getting our disclaimers in early. So the great fundraising leaders had an instinct that the organization was losing focus, becoming too complicated, etc. And if we're going to accelerate, we need to get back to simplicity. We need to get back to why. So the red dot moment is the whole organization process, which is exactly what Nyasha did with Phoenix, to get back to why, to line up the building blocks of great fundraising. And it culminates with the leadership signing off on an investment plan and everyone pointing in the same direction for growth. These red dot moments would invariably produce what we came to call the blue dot or the new ambition. This is the big idea that fires people up internally and differentiates externally, points everybody in the same direction, in the same emotional direction, crucially. And then acceleration follows. So a good way to think about it is actually startup energy or getting back to the foundation of the organization. But what would happen is entropy, cultural decay would set in. People go back to normal, the people involved in that process move on, and everything gets complicated and unfocused again over time. So the great fundraising leaders would start to understand this paradigm, and then they would get ahead of it. So you'll notice here, this is a flat line rather than a massive dip. And they would get ahead of it. They would get back to why again and launch another surge. Not to embarrass Giles, but the blue dot, the big idea from NSPCC was cruelty to children must stop, full stop. One of the most famous campaigns in the fundraising world. I'm just going to tell you what this can look like because this is all a little bit academic. This will take 2 minutes, Nikita. 13 minutes for Q&A. So 10 years ago, Revolutionize started to share this story. This was a turning point for Clare House Children's Hospice. This came from a co-creation seminar, and this came from the clinical nurse director. In her job, she's trained to take emotion out. She's trained to protect families at all times. So she was actually anchored in, we can't tell emotional stories and we need to protect families. But she learned the principles of great fundraising. She learned about the primacy of emotion for decision-making and for giving. And she had a light bulb moment and she shared this story. This is a true story. A mother of a child using their service was asking her to share, and she had been deliberately not sharing it. This was a huge turning point for Clare House. My child is dying. I can't choose when, but please let me choose where. Jack is my gorgeous 4-year-old little boy who loves Mr. Men. Jack is currently in intensive care and I've been told he is going to die. I don't want him to die in a hospital surrounded by machinery. I want Jack to have nice, clean, shiny hair when he dies. I want to cuddle Jack in his Mr. Men duvet when he dies. I want the last thing he hears to be my voice reading Mr. Bump his favorite bedtime story when he dies. This would not happen in hospital, so I choose to take Jack to Clare House. At Clare House, Nurse Ruth helped me to wash Jack's hair with his own shampoo so he smelled like Jack. Heather put Jack's Mr. Men duvet on so it felt like Jack's bed. And I cuddled Jack in his bed reading Mr. Bump, and I kissed Jack one last time before he died peacefully in my arms. Clare House helped me do this. Thank you, Danielle. It's one of our most emotional stories. But I think you can see how this could be a massive turning point for an organization. Because we haven't gone into massive detail, but one of the key things from our research is we are two businesses with one purpose. The clinical nurse director's job is to take emotion out of it. Fundraising's job is to put the emotion back in. And by doing that, we will raise more money and we will help more children have a beautiful life. We will save more lives. We will honor our missions. And Clare House developed an uncompromising fundraising sub-brand, help us reach every dying child. So their big dream, their blue dot became reach every dying child. At the time, they're reaching only 1 in 3. They called us a year ago. It took them 9 years, but they did it. They reached every dying child. And now they're thinking, what's next? Helen, Jack's mother, said, please use Jack's story on one condition. Don't change his name. This is not an anonymous case study. This is my beautiful boy who loved helping people. I want them to know it's Jack. So this is the big idea that gives emotional internal alignment and external differentiation. These are the building blocks. The big thing, the thing that sits above it is the new ambition or the blue dot. What is the big idea that will bring us all together? And we are touring the world with our Great Fundraising Masterclasses because we really want to make this accessible to everybody. So we're going to be in Dublin on the 3rd and 4th of September, London on the 11th and 12th, going to be in Toronto on the 15th to 17th, and most relevant to people on this call, we're going to be in Johannesburg on the 1st and 2nd of December. Now, questions or comments?
Okay, I'll go first. I hope I will be only the
Make
first.
this an easy one, Giles, please.
I wouldn't come on this call if it was going to be too easy, Colin. Okay, I've read the book, of course, and I've been around a while, and it really is a truly new approach to fundraising. It's something that never occurred to me before. It's terrific.
Well, it did
And
occur to you, Giles. You just had an instinct. You just had an instinct about it.
yeah, when no, it's new, Colin. It's new. Yeah.
Yeah.
His attitude, Alan's attitude is new. I would come on the Great Fundraising Masterclass. However, I'd have to pay my own way out of my own pocket, and I can't afford it. Nevertheless, I don't know about South Africa, but in the UK, this really is the biggest thing going on at the moment. It's the Great Fundraising Masterclass. It's being talked about all over social media. Everyone's talking about it. I just wonder, why is it taken off in this way, do you think?
Um,
Because it works.
because it works, yeah. It works.
Um, I think there's something that has to be said about what people normally look at in organizations uh, is return on investment and the numbers, and more worried about sustainability, and not looking at the behaviors. And what great fundraising actually highlights are the behaviors within organizations that block raising funds. And I think that people have always known these behaviors, but haven't pinpointed what they are. And I think that that's what's taking off. It's and as fundraisers that are on this on the call, I also see Eric is an executive director of an organization, but also the chief fundraiser within the organization. And like sometimes boards will block you from raising more money. Over policing the organization will block you from raising more money. So that these behaviors exist, but it's just no one had the chance to look at it, or no one had the chance to actually pinpoint the fact that there are certain behaviors that we exhibit within organizations. And it's an aha moment where you actually think back and you look at, oh yeah, actually I've got this type of person in my organization. I've got this type of policy in my organization. And basically that's what, stemming from the masterclass, you'll be able to see that. I attended the masterclass in Cape Town in 2017. And then subsequent to that, I went into an organization which allowed me to remove those blocks. And that's where the success came in.
Guys, the reason it's taken off is it has given CEOs the tools they need, and it's given senior fundraisers the tools they need to influence CEOs. That's the real reason. Because conferences are tactical. Like, I'm a direct marketing fundraiser. I love tactics. I'm obsessed with them. I used to annoy people a lot about tactics, right? But the solutions are not tactical, they're strategic. So this research is it's looking at the instincts of people like you and taking the bird's eye view and giving leadership a path and clarity. That's why it works. And what we see is, as every single time the CEO gets it, this works. So that is the key. And I see a question in there from Jazz. I might take a look at this. I might just curate these questions as well. Danielle, So, does that make sense, Giles? I'm just going to move
Yep.
on. So we're running out of time.
It does. Yep. Thank you.
And Jazz's questions follow on from Nyasha's answer, I think.
Yes. Thank you for translating acronyms, Howard.
So yeah, I'll read out Jazz's first question. Thank you. Have you found that non-profits with a CEO who by
Yes.
nature is a fundraiser
Yes.
tend to be more successful?
Yes, that's a short answer. Yes. We can save a bit of time with that one.
And I'll read out the other one just so that is recorded. I've heard Colin speak before where he mentioned within a certain context that fundraising comes above brand, and the fundraising department should supervise and have sign-off in this area. I'm paraphrasing. At first, I found this concerning as there is often a lack of understanding around good practice for brand custodianship, development and strategy, particularly in the MPO space. The living brand system is the foundation of any organisation. Please elaborate on how fundraising trumps this in the revolutionised methodology.
We could spend hours answering this one, right? But I'll tell you what the great fundraising organizations do. And hello again, Jazz. Jazz was she dialed into a seminar in Maidenhead a few weeks ago. The great fundraising organizations decide what is our brand for. Our brand is for many things, but depending on where you are, you need to decide what is the prime aim. So RNLI we often cite. They had to make their brand fundraising prime because they were in long-term decline. RNLI and MAF have obviously some parallels as well. MAF is where Jazz works, by the way, everybody. So it's not that it trumps it necessarily. It's we make the decision, and it's not a democracy. What does the organization need to live our purpose? The great fundraising organizations become absolutely clear on purpose and make purpose the brand. That doesn't mean you don't do all the brand things, you dial up certain things for different audiences. You have to do that. The great fundraising organizations tailor their messaging, express their purpose differently for different audiences. So it's not in competition. They work perfectly together. So the Clare House, I kind of brushed over it for time earlier, but the Clare House example, the first slide was their credibility prime brand. Like their front page is all about attracting families to use the hospice service, but they had an uncompromising fundraising sub-brand. So it's really about making everything work together so that they can be more than the sum of their parts. The key thing is you don't compromise. You don't try and find a one-size-fits-all. You don't mash a comms and an advocacy and a services and a fundraising message into one, which is what most or many organizations do. So does that answer your question?
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Great.
Any more questions? We're in the free form bit now. Just jump in. Any jokes?
Okay, I'll ask another question. Yeah,
Please ask it of Nyasha because we have a lot of South Africans here.
Sorry?
Please ask it of Nyasha because we have a lot of South Africans here.
I don't mind who in Revolution I'll stick. I'm sure you all talk with one voice. The whole essence of Alan's book, or sorry, one of the key things in Alan's book is that there are two organizations in a sense in a charity. So you said kind of rather glibly, oh yes, it's helpful if the CEO is essentially a fundraiser. But in my experience, that is rare. The CEO is normally not a fundraiser. They're normally not part of that organization. What do you do with a CEO who's not inherently a fundraiser? How do you stop there being a conflict and trying and get an engagement between the CEO and fundraising?
Well, very quickly, give them the book. Over to you, Nyasha.
But buy 2 copies and give one to that's a good one. Do you get two for the price of one?
Depends who you ask, Giles.
What?
It depends who you ask. Over to you, Nyasha.
Giles and anyone else that's on the call, I think that one thing that I always speak from my own experience and the organization that I entered, no one was a fundraiser. So then there is the best thing that one can do for themselves is to ensure that they educate the CEO to understand what needs to happen. And if you do have a CEO that understands and listens to that, then you'll be able to fly because you become a team. And so their job and their role will be to ensure that everyone else is aligned, and your job is to ensure that you bring in the income in the best way possible. So with my CEO, my former CEO, while she was ensuring that operationally the organization was running, and also understanding that the stories that needed to be told had to be collected by programs, she ensured that that happened and made it very seamless for me to ask for information that I needed to service donors. So that made it quite easy. She wasn't necessarily a fundraiser, but that understanding is important. But it also trickles down from a board level as well. So your board also needs to understand this process. So which is why from our side, when it comes to the masterclass itself, we go in depth into this on how you can do it within the masterclass in training the whole organization, training the CEO and training the board. We go in depth into it. It's a 2-day masterclass. Howard and I will be in London together. I will be with Alan in Toronto, and Alan, Rico, and I will be in Johannesburg. Howard and Colin will be in Dublin. So we'll go in depth into it, but it's just, if they understand, if they get it, then you'll be able to fly. If they don't get it, get someone on the board to also get it as well.
One last question, and then we wrap up.
We're bordering on slick now, Nikita.
I know.
Yeah.
Revenue's just posted, I am new in the fundraising space. Kindly advise if there is a certain amount of experience or preparations needed to attend this masterclass. Good question.
You just need an open mind. That's all you need. Leave your ego at the door, as somebody said in the MAF. Audie from MAF Norway said, leave your ego at the door. That was his contribution, which is what the producer who ran Band-Aid said, apparently. I can't remember his name.
Okay, Colin, I said I wasn't going to give answers, I'm going to ask questions, but I'll give an answer to that question. I would say the less you know about fundraising when you go into the fundraising masterclass, the better, because you will have less prejudice, less standard views that have to be unpacked before you can rebuild along the revolutionized model. So I would say the less experience, the better.
Raylene, you have your hand up?
I have, and I'm going to just follow up on that question. I am a very experienced, dare I say it, I must come across as terribly arrogant, but I think I've forgotten what a lot of people still have to learn, having been doing fundraising for too many years. My question is, if you've been in this role for so many years, do you think there's still a place in a fundraising masterclass? Because I think a lot of what I know anecdotally, intuitively, through hard-learned experience is probably what's in the book.
The most valuable thing, Raylene, is bring your CEO, have the adult conversations that are informed by the concepts under our guidance, and that's what's transformational. So the whole thing is about developing a shared frame of reference with your organization. The difference of our research, it's about the whole organization from board to front lines. So the very best thing a fundraiser can do, and this again builds on the answer to Giles's question, the very best thing a fundraiser can do is bring their CEO along.
Interesting.
And I would like to say, Raylene, from my side, I had been in fundraising for a long time before I went into this and was going into organizations that had built fundraising systems before. But there's something that has to be said about the Great Fundraising Masterclass, which always opens your eyes, because we do education, inspiration, and then there are separate seminars for co-creation purposes. But that education and the inspiration bit, I didn't know it's something that I needed at the time, because you're so jaded by so many different masterclasses.
That's true.
And then you find yourself in a space where you think, oh, actually, I don't need anything anymore. A lot of the masterclasses are training you on how to write proposals and things like that. This is so critical. I'm assuming that are you in South Africa?
Yes.
If you're in South Africa, this is critical in the sense that those behaviors, we're seeing them every single day, and you just need to pinpoint them. And like Colin said, if you can bring someone in, as one of your CEOs, or even bring your programs director with you to this particular one, it will serve you very, very well. My programs worked so well after this.
Sorry, Nyasha. This maps on to what Giles said as well. The real benefit of our education is more for the rest of the organization than the fundraisers. The fundraisers will learn, they'll have the bird's eye view, and if we've done our job, you will feel fired up and passionate about your job again. That's what we're hoping, and that's one of the reasons I fell in love with Revolutionize. I've worked for 18 months, but I've been a fan for 10 years. And I worked with Trócaire, an Irish INGO. The reason I applied for the job is I knew they had worked with Revolutionize. And I thought this would be an opportunity to succeed, and it proved to be the case. So I have to run because I have an appointment, but if you want to keep chatting, feel free. Thank you, everybody, for our first ever AMA. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure. And we're all available for individual chats. You can chat with us as long as you like at any time you like.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks for organizing this. Thank you.
I'm just going to put my email address in the chat for those that maybe want to connect with us. But Nikita will be sending you all an email with the recording and everything. But thank you so much for joining us. And we are all on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect with us as well. And happy to have any conversations. Giles had spoken about not being able to afford. Please reach out to us, reach out to me and Rico if you're in South Africa, then we can look at solutions for discounts. And
Thank
London
you.
as well. We can look for solutions for discount with all the spaces that we're in.
Thank you, everyone. I'll reach out to you. Thank you so much for giving us
Thank
your
you.
time. Have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.